at the end. So I think a lot of you know me, but for those who don't, I actually don't come from the events industry. I've worked in a lot of different industries. I've changed careers several times, but there's some common themes across what I do, and those you can see here: project and program management, training and development, etc. And in 2016, I had been working in higher ed for a for-profit university system that had a hospitality division, and most of the schools were based in Europe, or basically outside the United States. And I worked for the one school that was in the US, and I was doing stuff for the US corporate parent, and they sold that division off to some European investors. And so I was laid off and was basically kind of finishing up my doctorate degree. And I have a doctorate in business administration and social impact management. And I'd been doing social entrepreneur mentoring on the side. I helped co-found a social enterprise incubator in Chicago. I'd been teaching sustainability. I've been doing all this stuff kind of on the side, like sort of my side gig or my hobby. And so I decided at that time that it would be great to just make that my full-time gig. So I did. And the things that I've been focusing on most are a lot of the topics that tend to be top of mind for the events and hospitality industry: food and beverage, sustainability, waste reduction, etc. And I've served, I love volunteering my time. Well, I guess I just can't help myself. And so I give a lot of my time, and that's how a lot of you know me, and that's how I've met some really amazing people. So I've been on committees or task forces for the Events Industry Council, the Global Business Travel Association, the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, and the Society for Sustainable Events. And of course, I've also spoken here with SEA, or been part of events with SEA, MPI, PCMA, etc. So, and then also somewhat in other spaces, so like NACE, AHOA for hotels, etc. So I enjoy doing training in the events and hospitality sectors, and as long as you keep inviting me, I'll keep talking. I also developed the online version of the Sustainable Event Professional Certificate that's run by the EIC. So Astrato is my company, and the sort of core tenet of everything that I'm about is that anyone in any position can drive positive impact. When I was starting Astrato 5 years ago, one of the things that really drove me a lot, because I was really starting to spend a lot of time on LinkedIn and social media and listening to what people were saying about sustainability and networking with a lot more sustainability professionals. And something that really bothered me and still bothers me, this has not gone away, is that sustainability can be so esoteric, it's so heavy, it's so vague. And it's gotten better, I'd say, over the last 5 years, that's for sure, but it's still a very heavy and dark topic sometimes. And it's set up in a way, it actually can be kind of elitist, which is, a little bit counterintuitive to, isn't sustainability supposed to be inclusive? Well, no, a lot of people in sustainability are sort of in a bubble and are make it difficult for others to approach it and be involved. So my work is so driven by this idea that I want anyone to be able to learn. And I have this acronym for how I approach sustainability, which is PEACE. And I believe that sustainability needs to be practical. We have to focus on the business case. It has to be economical. It has to be approachable. We can't always use esoteric and scientific and technical terms that can and certainly we can't be negative. We need to make it so that people can feel like they can be involved, and it's not this thing that they, aren't able to be a part of. And we need to celebrate even small steps, and it needs to be something we enjoy doing, because it is a heavy topic, and there's a lot of depressing and sad and difficult news as it relates to sustainability and social impact. And so we need to find ways along the way that we can enjoy what we're doing. And so those concepts are part of everything I develop and how I approach what I do. So to that end, I developed, after I had been doing some work for a while in the space, Few things I observed and started to really kind of pay attention to, which I'm going to share with you now, led to the development of this online course called Sustainability as a Team Sport. And the really cool thing is that it ended up getting picked up as a college course with Florida International University. So a lot of college students have taken it, which really proves, like, if college students can do it, then that proves that anybody can do it, right? Because they're younger in their career. They don't still don't know a lot of what they need to know to be professionals. They are working part-time and juggling lots of things, and yet they still manage to do things that I get pushback on from people who are seasoned executives. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of like my inspiration for putting this together, and how the course is designed and what it does. I recently released a brand new version of it, just really took it to the next level. And so I'm super excited about that right now. So a lot of you, because you're already kind of in this space, that this is what we face a lot of, right? Tell me what to do. There's just so much of people are like, just give me steps of what to do. I'm looking for something that's practical, actionable, etc. And so, part of the idea of just developing any online course is to address this mentality. Give me micro learning. I make a point, as much as I'm able to, that any of the video lessons in my courses are 10 minutes or less, right? So just carve out a little bit of time each day and follow. And I try to make it very sort of checklist oriented or steps oriented, right? So part of it is coming from that perspective. Why a green team? I think green teams, unfortunately, people kind of have a been there, done that attitude about green teams, as if they were something we did back in the 2000s, and that's so yesterday, and they're no longer relevant, but of course they are. The beautiful thing about a green team is that the same people who kind of feel like this also don't want to take on the whole project. It's too scary, it's too much, it's too overwhelming. So a green team is a great way to share responsibility. It's a great way to disperse the participation and enjoyment across and up and down an organization. Sorry, I'm hearing an echo. Is everybody hearing an echo right now? Okay, it's gone. Okay, awesome. So it also is a great way for spreading out the culture. And I'm going to share some examples of this, especially this whole idea of teamwork and building, team building and sort of bonding and communication skills across the organization. And of course, it's just basic learning about sustainability too. So more on sort of the green team scenario and addressing some of the common challenges related to green teams. So contrary to popular belief, they're not popular. 120 course participants so far, only about 5 were in organizations that already had an existing green team. So just think about that. And this, I've had representation from about 20 different industry sectors take this course, but the vast majority are hospitality and events. And so that's a lot of hotels and a lot of restaurants and a lot of venues out there who still don't have green teams. So I believe that the opportunity to start green teams is amazing. There's a lot of potential out there. And so far, green teams, in addition to the fact that they don't really exist, they tend to be the last few minutes of another meeting, just to sort of check the box. They're also often all executives, but little execution. Same sort of thing, like, oh, it's the last few minutes of our executive committee meeting. So it's sort of an afterthought. Turnover means that green teams fizzle out. This is a common excuse I hear from management level, like, oh, we can't have a green team, or we can't have staff, like lower levels of the organization on the green team because there's too much turnover. We address that in the course. And then another challenge is that most of the time, the person assigned doing a green team, now this is a generalization, it's not, I'm sure there are building engineers out there that are super bubbly and very personable people, but most of the building engineers who are assigned the task resist this task. They chose the career they're in, and they're in the place they're in because they enjoy tinkering with the systems and managing all of that piece of it. But they're not necessarily the person that wants to walk around and chit chat with others and build relationships and sell ideas. And so unfortunately, the person who's not got the right skills and strengths for recruiting and running a team is often the person given the job of the team. And then the flip side is, the marketing or salesperson who might be more inclined for that often doesn't have the sort of systems and technical background. Thus, why you need all of these different skills on a team together. Another reason that green teams are so important, especially in hospitality and especially in hotels, is that there are all these programs designed at the corporate level, beautiful, strategic, amazing programs. But I've had students in my green team course from every major hotel brand that you can name. And the vast majority of them, one of their first assignments is to research what their brand is doing with sustainability. The vast majority of them were completely unaware. Oh, we don't do that at our property. Oh, I didn't even know our company did that. I hear that over and over and over again. So the green team can be the legs on the ground, the feet, they can be the ground level implementation of the corporate strategy, right? So the corporate can create all these great policies, templates, commitments, but the green team is the local staff level that can actually implement those things and drive results. For the college participants, and just in general, this demographic out there, the Gen Z and millennial demographic, and increasingly the Gen Z as they enter the workforce, there's all these studies that talk about the fact that they desire purpose. But you know what? I think people have this mistaken idea that because they want purpose, that they'll somehow go out and figure out how to make that happen. And I can tell you that the vast majority of them are sitting around and waiting for someone to give them permission to do that in their jobs. They're waiting for someone to give them a title, give them the training. We hear about the Gretas of the world, right? You hear about the ones that go out and start companies and change the world. But the vast majority of this generation that does want to have purpose-driven work, they need more hand-holding than we're giving them. We need to give them plans, career paths. We need to give them a lot more to enable them to live out and manifest this thing they desire. So once they're given just even a little bit of a nudge and a little bit of information, they will rise to the occasion. And the 120 college students who start, almost 120 college students who started green teams, prove that, right? It doesn't take, they don't necessarily have to go out and get degrees in it. They just need some guidance and some structure and the opportunity to make these things happen. So here's a great case in point. So this particular student worked at a property management company, which is a LEED building. Most of you already know what that means, right? It's a sustainable building. She didn't know what LEED meant. She'd been working in this building. She'd been working for the company for 4 years and was not aware of what LEED means, nor any of the sustainability initiatives from the management company. So she noticed, right? She noticed like, hey, our building, we're not doing a lot of things. Like, yeah, we're LEED. Now I know what that means, but what else, right? And she noticed that other buildings, like she would get calls from other buildings who would be like, well, what are you doing about, your trash? What are you doing about your elevators? And she actually built a business case to convince management to install two EVC parking spots in the building. So that's a small thing, but for that student, I actually, after this class, she went and got a job at a green vehicle company, right? So, that's like a great example of just lighting a fire in someone and giving them just a little bit of a nudge and guidance, and then they take it from there. Now, in the college version of the course, I don't require them to do any particular initiatives because I can't control that in their work environments. I only require that they start a team, and a team can be as little as 2 people. And then I require a sort of a research project, right? Because they have control over that. Yet, time and time and time again, these students really go out and do real things. These things, they've all done these things, real live initiatives. And so it's really great to see, just how they talk about it, how excited they are, how surprised they are that it was at the end of the day kind of easier than they thought it would be. And just to give you an example of how amazing this is, the install low flow toilets, that happened at a church. A guy who took the class wasn't working at the time. So he's like, can I do this at my church? I'm like, you can do this anywhere. He started a green team at his church and convinced the treasurer of the church. He did the math to show him how much water would be saved, and they switched out their toilets to low flow toilets. So this can be applied in any kind of scenario. It all adds up. A student at a sustainable hotel gift shop, she did an informal survey of customers and found that 80% would be okay with email receipts. So she removed the print paper from the printer. It's one of my favorite stories. Just take the paper out of the printer. She also found out that they were losing about $5,000 in sales per week because customers once they found out a product was made from plastic instead of like they thought it was made from a more sustainable material, they decided not to buy. Wow, right? How compelling is that to now go to the owner and say, let's source some different gifts and materials for this. She also changed a process that saved paper towels. So just little things, right? And then one of my favorites is she proactively reached out to a vendor. And she was like, why do you need to send the sunscreen in a box inside of a box? And they were like, yeah, why do we? And they stopped doing that. So what a great story for the vendor as well as for the gift shop. I encourage the students to start small and just do whatever it takes to build momentum. And, a lot of times the students come in with like, we're going to do this and do that. They think they're just going to like, oh, I'm going to install solar panels on the roof of the mom and pop restaurant I work for. Probably not. We're going to stop using all cleaning chemicals and just use vinegar. Probably not. Right? So it's just about like helping them sort of temper that excitement and find out like, well, what's reasonable and relevant for your managers or the owners, and start with that. And then that really builds them some great leadership development, right? They start to understand how to take ownership of these things, because I sort of kind of encourage them, like, you don't necessarily have to always ask permission for all of this, right? Some things are, understand what's in the span of your control and change that, right? And so they really became more empowered. They really started to grow in their leadership. They started to be noticed by others that they work with, their peers, as well as their managers. And they started to see, they could see their own impact on the culture of their organizations. They also saw it as an opportunity for career building. So this student here, he worked in just like kind of your typical hotel that has like a little breakfast, serve yourself kind of breakfast area. And he made these little signs and actually set up, this particular hotel did not even have recycling at all. He set up a recycling program. It's a very small thing, but a very big thing and a start down that road, right? That others can build on eventually. And so this is also another one of my favorite quotes. This person at a hotel was saying, at first, the director was standoffish about it. And that's the great thing about running it as kind of a college course, right? So the college students can go to their manager and say, well, my grade depends on this. So can I please talk to others about it? Sure. Okay, whatever. But inevitably, I'll hear towards the end of the class, how it just completely changed the dynamic between the student and their boss, because they started to be seen as somebody who could be trusted to do more, and the boss would come to them with more questions, right? So he started looking to other hotels, how they've reduced plastic. As our hotel adds new locations, he wants to be a part of that. He now sees sustainability as going to be a recurring theme. It's crazy to think that there are people out there that still don't understand that, but we all know there are still lots of them. And so the green team is a great way to just sort of have a wake-up call for people and get them involved. It builds relationships. I heard this a lot, but I remember one student who worked at the Margaritaville Resort in Hollywood, Florida. She was saying that she was like, I'm meeting all these people that I never even knew their name, right? So she only interacted with, I think there's like 2 or 3 restaurants or eating establishments on that property, and she worked in one of those. So now she's meeting people in housekeeping. She's meeting people who work the front desk, etc. And so it just, becomes more, it becomes like a safer thing. Like I can step out a little bit more if there are other peers working with me on this. It's a great way to share ideas. And I really encourage them not to judge ideas, to just listen to people and hear everyone out and let everybody share ideas and opinions, and then work together on what's the most realistic and to build a business case for it. Some of the challenges, not that, I mean, this, I'm painting a really rosy picture here, but there are some challenges, especially for younger people. A lot of times these ideas start out very vague because that's the only lens through which, like the lens that they're looking through is very wide, right? They don't necessarily know the language or the technology to say it more specifically. So this is how I could guide and coach them. And so they might say something like, we use too much electricity. Okay, well, let's break that down. So like one example was a student who worked in an 11-story hotel, and we started kind of unpacking that. And so I was like, well, what about storage closets, right? That's a typical area where sometimes lights are left on. So she walked around, observed, looked in rooms, did the math, and out that there were like 2 closets per floor whose lights stay on pretty much 24 hours a day. So we did the math. It's crazy how much extra electricity that is, and how easy it is to make the business case for motion sensors inside the, and she also talked with housekeeping staff about how long they spend in the closets. That was a no-brainer to put motion sensors in. Another challenge is reality. Again, we should start a composting program. Well, do you understand how a composting program works? And that you're, located in a strip center and probably your landlord isn't going to allow this. So let's start with what you can do, right? Let's focus on reality. Some naive attitudes, again, I said earlier, like, oh, let's get rid of all our cleaning products and switch to vinegar and water. Probably not. And so a lot of the workbook assignments, as well as the coaching program and how I would teach the students, is just to help them, kind of stay on track and provide some guardrails for these things. So before we move into our little discussion and activity, I'll just quickly do this little plug. I'm going to pop this into the chat so you can check it out. I've got a little code here you can use to get a discount for Muse members or Muse friends and family, as the case may be. And then I also have a course on sustainable procurement. I'm not going to talk about it today, but just so you're aware. And I'm running a 6-week coaching program